My name is David Phillips, and I'm the Director of the Program on Peacebuilding and Human Rights. And we've been deeply involved in Armenian issues, especially since the attack on Artsakh by Turkish and Azerbaijani forces. We launched a project called the Artsakh Atrocities Project, which is a research and documentation effort. We wanted to make sure that we were memorializing the event. So we established the project as a destination for academics, students, and government officials. So if they needed to learn about Artsakh, they could go to this site and we have extensive documentation. We've also had a series of different Zoom conferences over the past week. And today's event is a historic first for our institute, because this is the first time in the past 2 years that we've had in-person discussions. So this is a hybrid event. We're joined here on by members of the Armenian Students Association. We're joined on Zoom by an audience of friends and supporters across the country, including Armenian Americans, but not limited to that. So today we're very honored to have a visit from Artak Beglarian to talk about the current conditions in Artsakh, what's happened in the year since Azerbaijan's aggression, and specifically since November 9th and 10th are the anniversaries of the agreement that stopped armed conflict and brought Russian peacekeepers to stabilize the situation. And we'd like to hear from Mr. Beglarian what the result of that effort has been, what the role of the Minsk Group is or should be, how the United States could play a more active role. So we're looking forward to hearing from you about all of these topics. We're very pleased to be co-sponsoring this event with the Armenian Students Association. Mr. Beglarian to my left is the new head of the association. And we look forward to close cooperation with you in the future, with Armenian students on campus. You have a friend here at the Institute for the Study of Human Rights.
Thank you.
So if there's anything we can do to help your efforts, please rely on us for that purpose. You'll say a word of welcome and then introduce our guest. And we'll ask you to speak for about 15 or 20 minutes. And then I'll moderate a discussion with people here and people on the Zoom. So,
thank you very much, Mr. That's my pleasure and honor.
Can I stop you there before we talk about your pleasure and honor?
Yeah.
Let's have a proper introduction by Mr. Beglarian on behalf of the Student Association.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. I am ARTAK BEGLARYAN. I'm a senior at Columbia, majoring in Econ and Middle Eastern Studies. I'm president of the Armenian Society here. I am also an exec of ASA United, a national student organization, and a member of AYF and a student ambassador here at Columbia. And I'm so glad to be co-hosting this event. Mr. Artsakh Beglarian has been serving as State Minister of the Republic of Artsakh, NagornoKarabakh, since June 2021. Prior to this appointment, Mr. Beglarian worked as Chief of Staff to the President and coordinated the activity of the Republic's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. For more than 2 years, Artak Beglarian has served as the Human Rights Ombudsman Defender of Artsakh. During his tenure, the Office of Ombudsman issued numerous reports on both domestic and conflict-related human rights violations, including on war crimes committed by Azerbaijan during the 2020 aggression against Artsakh. Along with his executive positions, Mr. Beglarian has been actively involved in analytical and academic activities. He has published several academic papers on democratization, political systems, conflict and security studies, Caucasus affairs, and geopolitics. Artak Beglarian also has a PhD in political science from Yerevan State University in Armenia, as well as a master's and bachelor's degree from the University College London and Yerevan State University. He studied public policy and administration at Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy as well as attended an exchange program in business management in Greece. Mr. Beglaryan was born in Stepanakert, Republic of Artsakh. He is married and has 2 children. Thank you so much.
Artsakh, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you for this event, for the invitation. It's again my pleasure and honor to take part in this event and to be with a program on peace building and human rights, which has quite important contribution for so many years to peace and human rights protection worldwide, not only in our region, but also in other corners of the world, which is quite important for us that there are such kind of institutions. And thanks, Mr. Phillips, also for your engagement and your contribution to the Artsakh human rights protection and peace. That's appreciated. All right, I will give brief overview what we have now, what we had during the war in terms of peace and human rights protection, and what we hope to have in the future. During the war, 44 days war, we had numerous war crimes by Azerbaijan and Turkey. And my office, as said, I used to be human rights defender or ombudsman. My office was making fact-finding mission and made lots of reports on the situation on the ground. And just shortly, the war crimes included both targeting civilian population and civilian infrastructure, vital infrastructure, both deliberately and indiscriminately, and using banned methods and banned weapons, targeting journalists, including international journalists, targeting objects under special protection of international humanitarian law, such as cultural monuments, cathedrals, hospitals, schools, kindergartens, etc. Recruiting and engaging mercenaries and terrorist groups in the war with banned methodologies of warfare, hate speech, systematic and organized hate speech, and many other war crimes, including torturing, beheading, executing Armenian captives, including civilians and combatants, military servicemen. And by now, there are numerous crimes which are ongoing, including keeping war prisoners as hostages in Azerbaijan, keeping their fate hidden. I will come to the details later. Destroying and damaging and vandalizing Armenian and Christian cultural heritage, especially under Azerbaijani occupation, and many other crimes which are ongoing, and human rights violations which are ongoing by now, since the war. And this kind of context and this kind of environment creates the environment where we live and where we are struggling for our peace and for our human rights protection. And there are ongoing cases, international cases at European Court of Human Rights and International Court of Justice, where Armenian government, and there are lots of individual cases, are presenting all the proofs and all the evidence of such kind of war crimes and continuous crimes by Azerbaijan. What we had as a result of the war, we had humanitarianly a catastrophe, because over 27% of our whole population, over 150,000 population, among them over 40,000 population is displaced, refugees, which means a lot for us in terms of needs, because we have lack of resources in order to deal with those humanitarian needs. We have thousands of people killed, more people wounded and injured, including civilian and military servicemen. Thousands of families and children are suffering with the losses. Tens of thousands of people, including children, have many traumas, mental health problems, and social economic problems, housing problems, etc. And with all of those problems, we are almost alone with the Armenian government and with the Armenian diaspora, just handling our humanitarian problems. Because with this 1 year, the international isolation is continuous. Even in some sense, it's even deeper than before the war. And Azerbaijan continues the policy of international isolation of Artsakh people. And unfortunately saying, the international community accepts this reality, regardless of the international law principles, that regardless of any territorial or political or legal status of any territory, no human right should be ignored or not protected by the international community. And I would say that from human rights, from humanitarian and from peace perspective, it's a must for us that international community's engagement in from humanitarian perspective and also from political perspective to settle the conflict once and forever is quite necessary. And it's a must also to break the isolation in order to protect human rights better in Artsakh. We have two types of human rights violations so far, and especially after the war. Firstly, because of the war and security problems. Secondly, because of our unrecognized status. I'm not talking about other regular problems, including domestic human rights issues. I'm talking about conflict-related problems. The security-related human rights violations are mostly those war crimes that I mentioned, and the continuous crimes, including keeping the prisoners of wars, cultural heritage problem, but also regular ceasefire violations by Azerbaijan, including some incidents that Azerbaijanis killed or wounded within this 1 year, a few Armenian Artsakh military servicemen, and also killed 2 civilian persons and 3 civilian persons, just quite deliberately, unarmed civilian persons. One of them a month ago was working at the agricultural field, just was shot by Azerbaijani sniper. The second one, just 2 days ago, was shot next to Shushi while working on water pipeline to restore the water pipeline. And this kind of crimes and violations are continuous, but there are lots of other violations like ceasefire violations, mostly psychological, with psychological threats and psychological danger, in order to make our people scared and not to see future in Artsakh and to leave Artsakh their homeland. That's the strategy of the Azerbaijani side. And the second type of human rights violations is coming from our unrecognized status and especially the international isolation. Because unrecognized status, as I said, should not be a source of international isolation. And as I said, we have serious lack of humanitarian support by the international community, including there is no international organization just except for Red Cross working in Artsakh. There is no UN agency working there. There is no entrance, no access to Artsakh by UN agencies because Azerbaijan is blocking. And many other organizations and also governments don't work in Artsakh. There is only the Russian government giving direct humanitarian support since the end of war. For 21, 22 years, US is giving every year over $2 million as aid to Artsakh. But unfortunately, this year, this aid volume sum has not been increased. It seems it's stable, but given the needs, I think this sum should be increased. And there is no other government, for sure, except for Armenian government, giving direct humanitarian aid to our people. Besides, we have lots of other human rights violations because of this unrecognized status and isolation. It means freedom of movement, airport problem, taking part in international programs such as academic, educational, research programs, capacity building programs, healthcare programs, etc., and many other problems that we are facing because of this international isolation. What we have politically, as a result of the war and as a result of trilateral agreement on November 9 between Armenia, Russia, and Azerbaijan, we have peace in general. We have peace there. We have Russian peacekeepers guaranteeing the peace. And why I'm saying in general, because as I said, there are some incidents, including with casualties, but in general, the security is guaranteed by Russian peacekeepers effectively, and they are engaged also in supporting everyday life of our people next to contact line. If there are security problems, they are supportive to guarantee the security of our people in working in agricultural lands, etc., which is important for us. But the problem is that we don't have stable security and stable peace there because the Azerbaijani side continues the violations, continues the aggression, and we want to have much more guaranteed and much more stable security there for a longer period. And we hope that with support of the international community, including the US and also Minsk Group co-chairman, Russia, US, and France, we would have both better security and also with political tools for sure, and also more active process to settle the conflict once and forever. Why? Because the conflict settlement will be the most important guarantee for our future, for our security. But it seems that Azerbaijan is not ready for any kind of dialogue and negotiation for conflict settlement, and they say that the conflict is over already, while the whole international community, including the co-chairman countries, say that it's not over and the status issue should be solved. We also think so, but we have some differences because we want that urgently. We want that quite quickly in order not to freeze the conflict. And we think that it will be a package, it should be a package of conflict settlement, not only giving the status, international status to Artsakh based on our right to self-determination, but also solving the humanitarian problems, giving the chance to return of our people, displaced people to their homes, solving the issue of deoccupying our occupied territories, including Shushi, Hadrut. I mean, those territories which were a part of, during the Soviet time, a part of Nagorno-Karabakh autonomous region, where we declared our independence in 1991. And many other problems which are quite important for us. And we are ready for quite civilized negotiations and peace with the Azerbaijani side. We need dialogue. We are open for dialogue with the Azerbaijani side, and we think that peace is needed for both Armenian and Azerbaijani sides too. Because personally myself, having tragedies because of the war since 90s, losing my father during the war, losing my eyesight as a result of war, I totally understand the tragedies and the consequences of the war for many families. And I don't think that we should continue this aggressive and hatred policy environment in the region, and Azerbaijan should stop this systematic policy and should be open for dialogue for the sake of its people too. And I don't want to see any people, including Armenian and Azerbaijani, to have such kind of tragedies that I had in my life. And many thousands of other children and families in Artsakh, in Armenia, and in Azerbaijan had. What can international community do, just as a conclusion, including the US? Firstly, humanitarian aid to Artsakh, direct aid, because we are alone, as I said, handling our problems. Secondly, to have international presence and international engagement of Artsakh in order to handle both humanitarian and human rights problems, and in order to give better guarantees, political guarantees for our security, because more international engagement and presence will mean more guarantees for us. Thirdly, to work hard on political settlement and to push the Azerbaijani side to accept negotiations. We are ready for negotiations based on the Madrid principles before the war, which was on the table. And we are ready to any kind of ideas to discuss and to find a good solution. But that solution should not be at the expense of our vital needs, vital rights and freedoms, and our values. Again, the conflict should be solved as soon as possible. And here, especially the co-chair countries, Russia, US, and France, have a lot to do. And I think it's possible if there is a political will by those countries and by a larger international community. That's all. Thank you, and I am ready to answer your questions.
Thank you, Artsakh. Well, I'm going to invite students to ask questions to you, but I'll take the chairman's prerogative with the first question. What do you expect and look for from the Minsk group? You talked about direct humanitarian assistance, facilitated mediation and dialogue, culminating in international recognition of Artsakh. Can you be specific? What's the roadmap like? What do you want?
First, the roadmap is to assess the problems and the new situation. And for that, there is a need to visit the region, including Artsakh. By now, within this year, Minsk group co-chairmen have not visited Artsakh. That's a problem for us and for them too. It means they are not still quite actively engaged. And I think it seems that the Azerbaijani side is the obstacle for that process, because they are unhappy with Minsk group format and Minsk group processes. Secondly, after assessing the needs and the situation, they need to be active and mediate in addressing the urgent needs of the people. First, the Artsakh people, because we are suffering, we are under international isolation, etc. Unlike the Azerbaijani people, which have access to the international aid, support, etc. Thirdly, to engage our people and our authorities in the process of dialogue and political discussions, because we are both the subject and the object of the conflict, and we should have full right to be engaged in negotiations and to decide our future. And having direct communication with the Minsk group co-chairman and also with the Azerbaijani side, we would have the possibilities, or explore the possibilities to find better solution or the best solution to the conflict. And I think what we expect from the mediators is to be not facilitator, but mediator and somewhat arbiter in order to settle the conflict. Because given the Azerbaijani and Turkish destructive behavior in this conflict process and conflict settlement, it's quite visible that they will never accept any kind of solution, any kind of settlement just out of this situation and out of Azerbaijani position. That's why it's a must that international community here, with the face of Minsk group, should be much more pushing, much more brave and arbitrary to make solutions. Otherwise, nothing is possible. And Azerbaijan will always block any kind of development process.
Do you have any direct contact with your Azerbaijani counterparts, or is it all done through international facilitation?
No, we don't have. There are a few contacts only for humanitarian purposes, everyday humanitarian purposes, with Russian peacekeepers mediation mostly. I mean, if there are some exploration work by our rescuers to find missing persons in battlefields, in that case, there are some few contacts, but mostly it's for humanitarian needs only.
Is the prisoner of war situation being addressed?
It's addressed, and mostly there is Russian mediation on that, and so far lots of prisoners of war have been returned. But now Azerbaijan officially confirmed over 45 prisoners of war in Azerbaijan. But based on our data, our intelligence, and our proofs, including video proofs, in Azerbaijan, they should have more than 100 Armenian prisoners of war, including civilians.
If you want to provide to Colombia the names of the POWs, we will publicize that and call for their release.
You mean the name?
If you are at liberty to share the names, we'd welcome receiving them from you.
Just now I can do that, but I need to check because I'm not the first responsible person for that. I need to check what's going on now, and I will be happy if there is no any problem, security problem for them. I would be happy to share with you.
Let me turn to my co-chair, Nareg Balyan, for the first question. And then we'll go around the room and give you all an opportunity for questions as well. Nareg.
My question is about the geopolitical situation with Armenia's other neighbors. How does Artsakh respond to what Iran, let's say, or Georgia is doing? Specifically, I'm thinking about Iran's recent tensions with Azerbaijan. I'm wondering how Iran and Georgia fit into all of this.
Frankly saying, I'm not happy with the behavior of Iran and Georgia during the wartime, and I expected much more from them than they did. But I understand that there are geopolitical interests, there are geopolitical processes, and after the war also some communication in this regard to we have, I mean, our Armenian side has with Iran and Georgia, and it seems there is a tension between Iran and Azerbaijan, security and political tension. It's their job. I can't say exactly the reasons. I can guess or I can analyze, but we would like to see to have peaceful environment and peaceful region, not only between us and Azerbaijan, but also between all countries, including Azerbaijan, Iran, Georgia, etc. Peaceful region and peaceful future of the region is needed for all countries, but it can't happen at the expense of any countries and people's rights or dignity or their values. And in this sense, especially Artsakh and Armenia people have nothing in this regard to compromise in the context of their security, their needs, their rights.
Let me just acknowledge the Ombudsman Office, which was our original partner in the Artsakh Atrocities Project. And we've put in the chat a link to the information and the database. So those who have joined via Zoom can have access to the information.
Thank you, David.
Sure, of course. Let's go around the room. Please identify your name and then your affiliation at Columbia. Let's start with you.
My name is Ilyas Abad. I'm not part of the Armenian organization, but I'm a Nareg's friend and I'm a computer science student.
You have a question for?
I really do have a chance to ask.
Okay, let's go to the ladies then.
Hi, I'm Saudine. I'm a junior at Columbia College studying economics. I'm also vice president of the Armenian Students Association here. My question is, what are some of the steps that the Republic of Artsakh and Armenia are taking currently to rebuild the nation?
Rebuild, you mean infrastructure?
Yeah.
All right, we have rebuilt the war consequences. I mean, destroyed, damaged infrastructure. We had more than 10,000 buildings damaged or destroyed only under our control. I'm not speaking about the other areas under Azerbaijani control and occupation. And we have rebuilt, renovated the majority of them. They are mostly houses, but as I said, there are also civilian infrastructure. And the infrastructure is already fully recovered, electricity, gas, water pipeline, etc. But we have still lots of problems, long-term problems to solve in this regard. But still hundreds of people are deprived of houses only under our control, not displaced, but because of the destroyment of their houses. And we have rebuilt some of them, not all of them. Besides, we have started large-scale housing projects, and we have built already hundreds of new houses and apartments for displaced persons, and we are going to build or renovate or rebuild up to 6,000 new houses or old houses within these 3 years, mostly for displaced persons. And here also we need resources, financial, human resources, in order to solve this issue as quick as possible. It is in general.
My name is Vicky Milkonyan. I'm a freshman at Columbia studying comparative literature and political science. My question would be, like, my parents and my family immigrated here after like the war in the 90s, like 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And when I talked to them about coming to this talk, they all wanted me to ask you like what you think that people in the diaspora can do, because like obviously everyone misses Armenia. They can't really go back right now for a long period of time because they have kids here, they have everything here. They give money when they can, but like what else do you think that they could be doing to support everything in Artsakh, even in just like mainland Armenia?
Thank you. I would say not only diaspora Armenians, whoever, including foreigners, would like to help. There are 5 key steps that they can do. The first one, to live and work in Artsakh, in your areas. If you are a professional in any area, you can come there, work there, and help to strengthen your area, to improve the capacities there, to have some results. Secondly, to work for Artsakh in distance, giving some consultation, having people to learn some new things, to get better education, making trainings for people in your area, etc. The third one is doing business in Artsakh. We have lots of needs, we have opportunities also. We are ready, I mean, the government is ready to give support to anyone who wants to invest in Artsakh, because it's important for us to rebuild the economy and develop the economy also with foreign investments. The fourth one is hard investment, such as building or rebuilding some buildings, doing some construction, houses, hospitals, schools, kindergartens, or any infrastructure, which is also important for us. And the fifth one is soft investment, such as capacity building in all areas, including in education, in healthcare, governance system, etc. And I think that whoever wants to help, they can find solutions. Even if you have the wish and you don't have any resources, but you are professional, you can spend some time to build capacities in Artsakh. That's all.
Aryan. I'm studying cellular molecular biology at Barnard. I'm a senior, and I just wanted to say thank you for being here and for your service to our country. And I would like to ask if you know more about or what do you think of the potential new concessions of land with mainland Armenia that are happening right now.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
Do you know about or what you think of the potential new land concessions that are happening?
From Armenia, you mean?
Yes, the corridor.
I don't know.
Okay.
Are you referring to the Zangezur corridor?
Maybe.
What's the status of the Zangezur corridor?
There is no corridor.
Is it proposed by Turkey and Armenia, Turkey and Azerbaijan?
They openly propose, it's quite visible. And the Armenian side, the Armenian authorities say that it's impossible. And there is no such kind of communication on corridor. It seems they discuss, they negotiate only opening the communication roads just mutually without any other territorial status, etc., which is important. I mean, opening communications is an important part for peace. But again, as I said, it cannot happen at the expense of the Armenian people, security and rights.
So we recognize that communications are important,
For sure.
but we also know that we can't really have regional economic development as long as Armenians are blockaded. So when we think about what we want the international community to do, we want the US government to raise its voice about steps to lift the blockade, to provide direct humanitarian and reconstruction assistance so that the lives of the people can be stabilized and improved.
Exactly, and that's our wish. I mean, we wish to have peace and security, but the Azerbaijani side should be ready for that, and first they should stop the anti-Armenian hatred and xenophobic policy, because it's the ground and the philosophy of their policy. Otherwise, their society and their authorities will not be ready any frank, honest communication with the Armenian side.
Question from you?
Yes, hello. My name is Armenian. My question was similar to one that was asked before. So I guess going off of it, in terms of what you guys are for awareness and to help, how do you think that one could combat the, I guess, lack of awareness or lack of willingness for awareness on this topic? Because I feel last year, especially in the United States, there was a strange disconnect where there were a lot of Armenians and some non-Armenians trying to spread awareness on the topic, but it was difficult to feel that the message was received after that.
Do you mean among diaspora Armenians or foreigners?
Mainly foreigners.
Media, some events, some opinion makers who engage in the process, but it's continuous and quite huge work to do. But also we should understand why we want to raise awareness and what are our targets, what we want to reach. And for that reason, that's why, I mean, we need strategic communication, and we need strategy in order to work effectively in that regard.
Let me point out here that the Armenian people are very well represented in Washington through organizations like the Armenian Assembly of America. The Assembly is a champion of the Armenian people and has done great work with members of Congress and with the Biden administration. Of course, there's always more to do, but you already have these structures in place.
For sure, there are Armenian groups and organizations quite effectively and every day working hard with the American politicians, authorities, and we have quite strong presence due to those efforts, presence and support at the Congress especially. Just a few days ago, I met also in Washington, D.C. with some congressmen and discussed all the topics, all the issues, whatever we talked now here. But it seems that at the executive body, still we need some additional support or understanding of the needs and of the future of the whole region. And we expect that the US government will be much more engaged in topics, whatever I mentioned, political, humanitarian, international presence, etc. By the way, David, I'm happy to be the first one breaking your isolation within 2 years. And hopefully you will be the first one breaking our isolation.
If that's an invitation, I accept.
All right.
Good, well, we have some guests who have joined via Zoom. So before we conclude, let me call on Vahan Aladani with a question. Vahan?
Do you still have questions? Yeah.
I guess I had to unmute. Sorry about that. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the Mr. Beglarian for being at this meeting. I know it's pretty difficult to go all over the United States, but I would appreciate your insights. And again, I think one of the biggest problems that we have in learning more about what is happening in Artsakh and in Armenia is the fact that the Armenian government and Artsakh government doesn't have the proper channels of media to be able to really educate the 7 million diaspora. And I think there's small pockets of individuals here and there who basically are aware of the situation, but majority of people who live in diaspora today are completely, I would say, unaware of the details. So there's a lot of hearsay and a lot of wrong information that basically spreads among our communities here. So what I would suggest is to the Armenian government specifically and the Artsakh government to have better media outlets or venues to be able to really educate the 7 million strong diaspora. I'm not sure how the Artsakh government approaches the population in Artsakh as far as the day-to-day or overall situation there, but for myself, living in one of the largest or the second the largest city outside of Yerevan, in Glendale, I tell you this much, that we get a lot of unnecessary and wrong and false information about what's happening in our homeland and also in Artsakh, which is our homeland. I should say that. But I would love to see one day Artsakh joining Armenia and being part of Armenia, historic Armenia. And I like to commend Assembly for doing such a great work. I think your work is commendable. Wish you the best and keep up the good work. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Van. I totally share your approach and your concern that we should have better communication and much more information on Artsakh in order to keep at least the diaspora Armenians aware of the situation, and in order to prevent fake news on Artsakh. We are doing that. I would not say that it's quite effective, but it's up to you too. I mean, the audience who wants to get the information to look for that data from certain sources. For example, in Artsakh, we have Artsakh Press and we have Artsakh TV, mostly covering the situation there. And if you follow Artsakh Press and Artsakh TV, I guess you will be more or less aware of the situation. But if you are following some not reliable sources of Armenian media, but reliable, but such a source which is not just regularly covering Artsakh events. In that case, you will not get enough information. If you are looking for information, it means that please look at the Artsakh sources, from the Artsakh sources.
Let me say that we're recording this discussion today, and we'll make the recording available to everyone in attendance. We'll also distribute it to our larger database, which includes many hundreds of members. So the fact that you're visiting Colombia and sharing information will reverberate through human rights circles.
That's great. Thank you.
Of course. So let's get a last question from Armin Marsoubian.
Hello, I'll make this quick. I'd like to know if you think Russia would be open to having OSCE observers joining its peacekeepers on the ground, or does Russia want to have sort of an exclusive role in Artsakh?
I can't say on behalf of them, especially that I am a politician. I am not an expert. That's why I would not like to guess or analyze. Maybe given their public statements, I think there is room to have negotiations, discussions. But it's up to the co-chairman, I mean Russia, US, and France, to have negotiations and to divide their roles. What does what, who does what, and how they do that. And it's quite visible that Russia, at least for a few times at the level of president and foreign minister, said that OSCE Minsk group should deal with the conflict settlement. And another thing which is quite important for us, that these three co-chairman countries should cooperate and can cooperate just around the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict settlement process. And before the war, they're always said by international experts that Karabakh conflict is one of the unique areas where Russia and the West are cooperating, and they have common interests there. And I think after the war too, they should find those solutions, and we can be a good examples for other conflicts too, that great powers can solve the problems with cooperation, with communication.
Thank you, Artsakh. So we'll take a final question from Laura Sistrakian. She's a good friend of mine. Are you calling from Hong Kong, Laura?
No, oh, that's actually my cousin. I'm Laura Sitrakian, or Lori is my Armenian name.
You can understand how I might have gotten you two confused.
Yes, definitely. No, so I'm Laura, or Lori is my Armenian name, and I'm in the executive MPA program at the School of International and Public Affairs. Thank you so much for doing this, for being here. It means a lot for me, for everyone, I think. So I in joining this program, I'm thinking about ways in helping Karabakh, Armenia potentially down the road. And I know somebody asked already, what can the diaspora do? But would you be able to be a bit more specific in the types of needs that you'll need? Like if we can help out with our expertise, are there any industries, any specific areas that have need before anything else, basically? Like what can I be looking into right now as I'm doing my program?
Thank you, Laura. If you specify your question, then I can give you some specific answer. I mean, there are lots of needs in all areas. If you ask on certain area, please specify which one you mean. For example, communication, raising awareness, or education, or good governance, or healthcare, or economy, or security, whatever you want. Everywhere we have needs. And the key needs, just not short-term needs, I mean short-term and long-term needs, are capacity building. And because of our international isolation, we are deprived of any kind of international communication, international program, and we don't get the results, the experience, the expertise from international community, from other countries, that they have reached good results in all areas. That's why diaspora and the Republic of Armenia is the only window for Artsakh people to get international experience and expertise in order to improve the life there, in order to build capacities institutionally or individually. If I didn't answer specifically, please specify your question.
No, I think you gave some more detail and that helps. And just, I may be completely ignorant on this, but do you guys have are there any connections or work that could be done with some global organizations like the World Bank or things like that?
No. We have
Not
some
right now.
communication with World Bank Armenians. If you think that it's communication, then yes. But for sure, it's not formal communication. It's just friend-to-friend communication or Armenian to Armenian communication. The problem is that no organization, especially intergovernmental, intragovernmental organization, is ready to have any kind of communication with the Artsakh Republic. That's the key problem. That's why I'm saying that we need to break the international isolation. If even the UN agencies, for example, High Commissioner for Refugees, OCHA, UN Development Program, UNESCO, and others, Council of Europe, and other organizations are not ready to have any kind of communication to understand our needs, to address our needs. Do you expect that World Bank or IMF or others can be engaged? It's up to political will of great powers represented firstly at the UN, but also at Council of Europe and other organizations.
So we're over time, but we have one final question that we'll allow from Inessa Bubinyan, and then we'll go to concluding remarks. Inessa?
Hello, hi. Thank you so much, Mr. Beglarian, for all the work that you've been doing during this couple of years. So I have the question regarding the invitation of the Minister of Defense of the Republic of Armenia, of Artsakh, who invited to come over to Armenia, the Minister of Defense of the. What my question is, which I wrote in the chat, is that you said it's problematic that the OSCE doesn't visit Artsakh. We saw what happened when the defense minister of Armenia visited Artsakh a couple of days ago. So is it problematic that Armenia's prime minister has still not visited Artsakh after the 2020 war?
I can't say exactly what will happen if he visits Artsakh, but I'm sure that good environment, certain environment should be created in order to have the opportunity for firstly for all Armenians visit Artsakh, but secondly for also foreigners visit Artsakh, but also for sure diaspora Armenians visit Artsakh, and the Azerbaijani side should accept our right to have any kind of communication. It's our land, it's our homeland, and we should be free to have any communication. And here the international community also has a lot to do in order to give enough messages and pressure to the Azerbaijani side not to be destructive, not to be aggressive. But I can't say what they are doing in which cases. I mean, you made conclusion about the Armenian defense minister visit and its aftermath, but I can't say whether they are interconnected or not. We can only guess.
Mr. Beglarian, I would like to add that although I'm living in Sweden, I did visit Artsakh a month ago within a program. And I was just wondering, so in conclusion, would you say that this is a security question, or is it some kind of a tactic, like a political tactic used by Mr. Pashinyan to, I don't know, not anger anyone?
Ines, I can say on behalf of Mr. Pashinyan.
Thank you so much.
Let me just add that without an international legal personality, without status, it's very difficult for Artsakh to interact with the international community. So we encourage your efforts to reach out, to become more transparent, more engaged, and we hope that culminates in a durable and sustainable solution that would involve recognition of Artsakh.
Thank you.
Let me turn to my co-chair, to Nareg Balyan, for a concluding statement.
My concluding statement is one of gratitude. Thank you so much to Mr. Beglarian for being here and answering all of our questions. Also, thank you to Mr. Phillips and Ms. Medley for putting this together. I really appreciate everyone who helped make this happen.
So thank you, Nareg.
Thank you.
Mostly, Artsakh, thanks to you. Your visit to the United States is critical, raising awareness, mobilizing strategic partnerships. You don't have to work on it when it comes to Colombia. You have a friend here. You have friends here. And we
I have no doubt.
Good. Well, let me reassure you further that whenever you need to amplify your message, if you ever have any written reports or statements, that you can rely on us as your friend and partner.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And hopefully together we can make the justice and peace possible also in our region. And I'm also ready to support, to contribute just personally myself to any other pieces and human rights protection in other corners of the globe, because I consider myself not only Armenian, but also a human being who has responsibilities not only to our nation.
Well, in service of universal human rights, we will stay in close contact, and we will work tirelessly on behalf of Armenians and on behalf of the Republic of Artsakh. So we are now officially adjourned. Artsakh, thank you very much for being with us.